Welcome to Soul Thrive, where we explore spirituality through healing trauma, shadow work, and applying the laws of the universe in order to master ourselves without the fear of the unknown. Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode on the Soul Thrive podcast. We are super excited today to welcome our special guest, KM. KM, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience today?
Hi, yes. So I go by KM, but that is short for Karen Michelle, and I am a certified Toronto personal trainer and recently a certified nutritionist. I love all things health, wellness. I kind of really love just the evolution process of becoming different and evolving into different and quote unquote better versions of ourselves. So that is a little bit about me. I love food. I love chocolate croissants.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah, and I love connecting with like-minded women such as yourselves.
Thanks so much. Thanks for coming on. We're so excited to get into the conversation. Congratulations on becoming a holistic nutritionist. That's amazing.
That's a lot of work.
That is a lot of work. Absolutely. And I'm sure you're offering that for your clients as well as part of like programs. And I know that you have like a very big online presence as well and a community. You do a strong girl walk. I've seen
Yeah.
that. Actually, one of our friends was talking about that. That's how I found you, actually. That's how I connected with you. She was like, "Oh, I've been on her walks before." And I was like, "Who's this? What's this all about? I'd love to come on one of those,
Oh my
right?"
God, can you
Yeah,
please?
I know I will definitely. We will definitely come on a strong
Yeah,
girl rock
yeah.
for sure,
But I want to know
100%.
about that. So
Yeah.
can you tell us more? Well, I'd like to know first of all, how did you get into wellness and fitness? What your sort of approach to wellness is, and then I want to hear more about the services that you offer and this strong girl walk thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So growing up, I am an only child, and I grew up with a boy cousin who literally just wrestled me into the ground every single day. And I grew up with him playing sports, and sport was always the thing that made me the happiest. I loved being in movement. I did swimming my whole life. I was a gymnast my whole life. Well, majority of my life.
Mhm.
And sport was the place that I was my happiest. And I grew up being very active with my cousin, playing sports, doing my own thing, dance. I played soccer for 7 years.
Wow.
And when these things kind of stopped, because, eventually you get older and people's lives change, I needed something else. And a girlfriend of mine introduced me to boot camp classes.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, like I'm any movement, I'm down. If you ask me to go snowboarding tomorrow, the answer is yes.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
she,
Not me. The the opposite.
that's fair. So yeah, she asked me to go. I fell in love with that form of movement. Now, as a gymnast and playing soccer and sports, I didn't know what a gym kind of situation felt like or
Right.
atmosphere that was so new to me. So it evolved from there. I just started really loving that way of moving and not just moving, but I was moving with other people. And I
Mhm.
think that that's the thing I love because playing sports, you're playing on a team usually, right? So that was a thing that I really, really loved. And from there, it sort of evolved. I started going to different fitness studios, kind of seeing what it was that I liked. I've done every single class you can imagine. I've done bar, I've done karate, I've
Oh,
done
that's amazing.
boxing, I've
Yeah.
done you name it, I've tried it. And then I kind of fell in love with strength training because it's very much like power-based gymnastics.
Mhm.
And so that's the thing I gravitated towards. And I had a few people tell me over the first couple of years before I actually got certified, they said, KM, you should be a trainer. And I was like, no, 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 no. This is just my outlet. This is just what I do. And people just kept telling me more and more. And I was like, you know what? There's a pull. There's a
Of
pull here.
course.
So
Yeah.
let's follow this. And I kind of just went from there. And from there, it's evolved to where we are today. And I am really grateful that I get to do this for work and call this my work and my
Mhm.
job. And so that is what I offer. I do one-on-one personal training. I also launched a platform last year, which in about 5 days is the official 1 year anniversary of the platform.
Nice, congrats.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you. And it has been a beautiful journey.
Yes, I mean, I just like the stronger walk in itself. Like I've seen, like the concept of your need, not your need, I would say, but it's just something that you, I think, exude within yourself, just your energy, connection. So like you want to bring people together, like you said, it was like for you, it's just an outlet, but then you made more of it, which is amazing to see, right? And you're bringing people together, which is really nice. And I think that I love that because I'm really about community, you know that. Like I put an emphasis on that. So anyone who does that, I really appreciate that because it's like so it's a big thing. It's a big
Mhm.
deal.
And what happens? So is it like a community of women like working out together or like actually going on walks? Like what is it about?
Yeah, so it started off so COVID, I obviously had to change the whole model of my business.
Yeah.
And then I started doing Zoom classes, and I had girls reaching out and being like, "Are you teaching? I'd love to jump in on a class. Like I want to do a class." And so it grew. And then when we finally were allowed to do like the 6 feet apart, if you remember that,
Yes,
girls
yes.
were like, yeah, girls were messaging me being like, "Can you please do an outdoor class?" And so I started doing outdoor classes, and I am proud to say, and this is really cool, and this is because everyone wanted to do something where they were with others.
Mhm.
My classes were sold out every week for 3 months, and I had a
Fantastic.
wait list
Mhm.
every week for 3 months. And people just loved, again, like you, they loved just being in a community. They wanted to do something with other people, especially at a time where we were so isolated.
Yeah.
And so that is how this sort of evolved. I started doing the outdoor classes and then going back. So I do kind of like a hybrid. I do online classes where people can join live classes with me a few days a week. And then I was doing outdoor classes. And then most recently, I started doing pop ups. And, I don't know how much you know about the Strong Girl Walk, but during COVID, again, there's nothing else to do. So I parked my car. I think I put my insurance to like fire and theft because I thought, where am I going? What am I
Yeah,
paying
so
insurance
true.
for?
I think we all kind of did that at one point. Yeah.
Right? It's like, I'm not going anywhere. I don't need a car. So I was walking everywhere. And that story actually originates with my mom. So she's been walking since I was literally in her belly.
Mhm.
And so during COVID, I was walking every day, and people would message me and say, "Can I join you one day? Like, I would love to join you. I'm in your area." And
Mhm.
I thought, why don't I just do a group walk?
Yeah.
I have a
Nice.
few people messaging me, like, why don't we just do this together? And so it was 3 years ago that I did my first ever strong girl walk, and I called it my strong girl walk, and I'll tell you that in a minute.
Mhm.
But I think I had 6 people that came, and we walked together. We went to get coffee, and I remember getting home and just being so excited. My cup was so full, and I'm
Mhm.
sure both of you can relate, where you connect with other people,
Yes.
different walks of life, and different energies. And I'm very much that person. I feed off of others' energy, and I just love community, and I love to connect. Again, only child. I
Mhm.
always make the joke that I'm the only child who wants to make friends.
Because it's so true.
Well,
From like a trauma standpoint, the only child does not want to make friends. They
Oh,
usually are like, no thanks. I mean, they want to belong to a
really?
degree. Oh, yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
wow. I had no
But
idea.
yeah, from like a trauma
Yeah.
standpoint, but like that's great. But it's because you also grew up with a cousin, right? And so like you had that like sibling rivalry and like all of
Yes.
that stuff. So it's a whole other conversation, but
Yeah, so the walks brought me that. I loved the aspect of being able to connect with others in real life. Again, this is at a time where we were all so isolated. So 2021, 2022, the walk started evolving. And then I thought, let's make this bigger and let me reach out to my brand partners and companies I love and partner with different places like Village Juicery and or there's a cafe on Bloor and Parkside, I believe it is. And let's go there and like let's do what I always do. I grab coffee and I
right.
go for a walk, right? Or I grab juice and I go for a walk. And tomorrow actually is our last walk of the year. I think we have 64 girls
That's
Oh
coming.
wow.
amazing. That's so great. Oh my goodness.
So we
We
have to
would,
go in the spring. Is
yes.
it is that when it comes when you
Yeah,
start doing it again?
yeah. When
Or
the weather starts to get a little bit better around April, May is when I start them back up, and I usually try to do once a month, but sometimes it's once every other month. It just depends on what's happening in my life at that time.
Hmm.
But again, this idea and this the thing for me is community. It's like
Hmm.
bringing people together. And I have women in my DMs being like, I look forward to these walks every single month. They bring their babies, they bring their dogs, they bring their partners. It's so beautiful.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when I think about the fitness industry in Toronto, so I'm also more into like gym and boot camp than Christina. I
I
used to
I
like
like to work out. I'm not
you
saying
do.
that I don't.
I
And I
didn't
make the
say
effort. I do to a degree, but I'm not I like walks. Like I'm like, let's go for a long walk. Let's,
Okay,
I
that's
just
fair.
now in the last few years started weight training, but only because I'm like, I don't want to be like a 70-year-old woman who can't like bend over and like you
Yes,
can't pick things up. And
yes.
like I'm not looking at it from just like a losing weight perspective. I'm
yeah,
like
like for
really
Good.
mind
longevity,
front, right? It's like
longevity
it's
and
like your health.
that,
I
yeah,
want to make sure I'm not frail and I break a bone, right?
right. But
Exactly.
But when I think about the industry in Toronto, I mean, everywhere in general, it's so oversaturated. You've got trainers everywhere, you've got gyms on every corner. What do you think it was about you that made you stand out and made you so successful? Because, like every gym is like, we're all about community and this and that, but not a lot of them actually foster that sense of connection. So,
Mhm.
out of thousands of trainers that I've personally just like seen in the community, what do you think it was about you particularly?
Well, thank you for saying that. That is really kind of you to say that. I think, again, to Christina's point, it's an energy thing. I think that people, when they meet me, they feel my energy, and I genuinely love people. I genuinely, I always say this to my clients and my friends because I have clients, and this is not to put anyone down because I believe that there's, a trainer for every person, there is a
Mhm.
hairstylist for every person, there is a
Exactly. Yeah.
doctor. Like there's a person for every person, right?
I
And who
agree. Yeah.
who I'm for, I'm for.
Hmm.
And I have clients who have said to me, KM, I've had other trainers and I didn't connect with them. I just couldn't
Hmm.
connect with them. And they have said to me, with you, I just instantly feel like I've known you for my whole life.
Hmm.
And I think that that's why fitness and community is so important to me because I genuinely want that connection and I genuinely care. I have people in my DMs that share some of their deepest, darkest
Hmm.
secrets with me.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's because they don't have anyone else to talk to. I think it's because they feel that I am actually there listening. And I don't just send like a smiley face. Like I am having full on conversations with people
Right.
because to me, what I think is this, if I were to put myself in your shoes or in someone else's shoes, and I was a person messaging somebody, and that person was responding to me with so much kindness and care. And even if it was just 5 minutes, that 5 minutes could go on for the rest of your day. You all of a sudden, your energy could be here. You
Hmm.
have a conversation like us right now,
Mhm.
your energy is elevated. All of a sudden, you go into your day completely different. Your headspace is different, your mindset is different. And not to say that I'm changing anyone, but conversations change us.
Of
And
course.
when we talk to people whose energy is truly good, you
Hmm.
you feel that change, so to your point, I think that the reason why these walks are so successful or my community is what it is because I feel like people genuinely know me and I am honest with them and I care about what it is they're going through, even if it's not something I can relate with. I make the effort to really just empathize.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely.
I like the abundance mindset, like
It
when you
is,
said,
well, and that's
yeah,
what I'm getting at.
yeah,
So she doesn't have a limited mindset at
right,
the end of the day.
right.
So right. So when someone communicates, like I'm not in competition with you. There is no
Hmm.
competition here. There is enough for everyone. There's enough
Mhm.
for this person, that person, this
Hmm.
experience or whatever. Then you know what is going to be attracted to you, whether you like it or not. And like, yeah, you also understand like the compassionate part and the empathy part, but I'm sure you also have very clear boundaries as well.
Oh, I
Are
have
you working on that? I was being polite.
I
I was
I
being polite.
my mom is always like, Michelle, you have to have a life, like you
Yes.
can't just be in your DMs. You're not a therapist.
Yes. I
And
I used to be like that. So at the
you
beginning, it used to be because I'm in this industry of spirituality and all that, super trendy, super, there's a lot saturation, all of that kind of stuff. And I was
right.
a lot like that at the beginning. At the beginning, I was like, oh my God, I just want to help and I just want to give and I just want to be present and I just want to, and it's a detriment after a while. So
Yes.
like like now I feel like with my own community of people, it's very lovely. It's like we can have these great conversations, but then there's boundaries as well. And they're
Yeah.
and they know that. But it took a long time, girl. I know. It takes a long time
Yeah.
because you really, when you have a good heart and you want to put it out there in that energy and you're hitting like you just want to make everybody feel good, right? It can be a lot and it is taxing on the body and the mind.
Oh my God, like nothing else. And yeah, it is a work in progress. And Ivana, you were gonna say something earlier. Sorry, I feel like I cut you off.
No, I think it was like I wanted to say like I like the abundance mindset because you said something like I like there's someone for everyone.
Hmm.
So I'm curious, and I think this is kind of related to the boundaries thing. Have you had to work a lot on rejection, like accepting rejection as well? Like if people would come to you to say, maybe you're not the trainer for me, but you always knew, well, that's okay. That means that we're not meant to work together. Somebody else will come that is for me. And just because someone says no to me doesn't mean that I'll be left without clients at the end of the day. So I'm just
Right.
curious, like even your process of like, because it's not easy to get to that mindset. Like it takes time and probably has taken you years to
Oh
get
yeah.
there. So curious how you got to that point, and then how are you working on the boundaries for the future? Because I know like it's like we're all law of attraction, like we all
Yeah,
have the same
yeah, yeah.
same stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have to say I'm really lucky and really, again, I truly, and this may sound corny and whatever, but I don't think it will because you both understand this. I always say to my mom, I believe in God. And I always say to my mom, God brings me these people because this is who I need and I am who they need.
Mhm.
And so I have never experienced a client saying to me that they don't want to work with me. I have, I have never, luckily, have ever had that experience. And again, I think that this comes from the fact that I give 110% to my clients and to my members and to my friends and to my family. And so in that area and work, I've never experienced that. There are times where I feel like, for example, and this will touch on the rejection piece, if I don't get a work opportunity and I see someone else getting it, I sometimes will have that rejection
For sure.
feeling like, how come I didn't get that? What did I do wrong? Did I do something wrong? And I used to think this so much more, maybe 7 years ago.
Mhm.
Today, what I think is what is for me will not pass me, but that is constant work because I am an overachiever and I want to be 100%. Oh, the Virgo in you. The second you said it, I already knew. I
I'm
already
like, you're
knew.
describing Ivana right now too. Yes,
Because Virgos
absolutely.
are very much Taurus and Virgos, apparently we have
Get
a very,
along.
yeah, we're like best friends because we
Mhm.
operate, our brains operate the same way.
Mhm.
So the rejection feeling, I would say, comes from when a opportunity maybe doesn't come my way. But what I've learned actually is, and this is, comes with time and experience and being around different people, is that there have been opportunities that I have not gotten and have later found out that it was for the better. Ooh.
Ooh.
That must be a new Zoom feature. I don't know
That's
what that is.
amazing, but I love that.
It's a sign. It's a sign.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've come to find out that those things actually would not have been to my benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now when I see people getting things, I'm happy for them. And
Mhm.
speaking about the manifestation and like mindset and abundance piece, what I think is I really want what's for me. And I know that there's work for everyone. There are
Mhm.
in Toronto alone, 7 million people.
Yeah.
Like, if we remember how, small we are and we remember how big of the city that we're in, there's so much opportunity. So I've never, yeah, it would with rejection with clients, that's never been my experience.
Do you fear? So this was my big thing. I think you know
Well,
where I'm
well,
where I'm gonna go next.
I'm just gonna take a moment. It's the boundary thing too, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes I think because like I know with me too at the beginning of when I was doing what I was doing, I like was so enmeshed in just like the giving and the doing and the being. And I'm not saying this is for you, Cam, at all. I'm just saying for myself, speaking of my
Mhm.
own experience, I'm like, the moment I started putting boundaries up, oh man, did that start to
The
rock
narrative
people
changes.
in
Yeah.
Tell
specific
me how. Tell
ways.
me how. I'm so curious.
Well, because it was like eventually you get to a point, I don't know how old you are, because like I'm 40 now. So for me, it just feels like the older you get, the less you tolerate.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so,
Right.
and right. And so there are sometimes that people don't mean to. It's not that
Mhm.
they mean to. It's just that when you were operating in a specific way for such a long time and you were giving an energy at a point in time, and
Yeah.
then you've had life also happen and experience also happen, and you've had other things kind of show up to kind of go, you cannot give 100% here anymore because
Yeah.
maybe you're gonna get married, you're gonna want to have a baby, you're gonna have so many other objectives in your life.
Yes.
It is going to rock people in a specific way. And so what will happen is you're going to start getting that sense of rejection, or they're going to feel a sense of rejection. And so
Mhm.
then they project that rejection onto you because
Mhm.
you're not the same person, and you wouldn't be the same person because as you continue moving on in anything that you're creating, you will always evolve. That's what I refer to as a spiritual evolution. There's always that spiritual evolution. You're always becoming a better, higher version of yourself. And that comes in so many different forms. And it's gonna annoy people. It's gonna rub people the wrong way, right?
Especially if they're used to getting something from you in a certain way and then they don't,
As a
right?
Taurus and as a Virgo, I mean, a Pisces is kind of like we give, we're empathetic, but I'm sorry, this is what this is,
You're
right?
like, peace
The earth
out.
signs, I think it's a lot harder for us to
I think
exercise those
so.
boundaries. A hundred percent.
It's because of the perfectionism, right? It goes
Yeah.
Yes.
into like that need, and I love that about you guys so much because it's such a amazing quality to have. And I like that you guys now recognize the abundance and the manifestation aspect of things because it's going to give you that fluidity of that creativity and that
Mhm.
energy and the divine feminine energy that flows through us.
Mhm.
But yeah, boundaries are such a huge thing when we're talking about not well, so I'm gonna say it's like rejection is it works together with that, and
Mhm.
people pleasing works together with that too, right? I was
That's
there too. I did that too. I've gone through, I think, so many examples of that, and I'm
Mhm.
sure you've gone through that too, Ivana.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's just my little tidbit of information.
Kim, I saw you were nodding when Christina mentioned people pleasing. And anything to add there?
okay. So this goes with the boundaries. And I think, and this is something I'm always working on, and I think it is an only child thing. Um, the need to please people, because I will say, and this is, you know, I think being vulnerable is beautiful. I grew up feeling like I had to please people to gain their likes, not likes in terms of like IG,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
for them to
A
like
sense of
me.
belonging. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And I felt like I had, and this is by nature how we're built. This is how we connect with other people,
Yes.
by assimilating, right? So that we can be accepted. And so, for a long time, I felt, for example, in my early 20s, I felt like I was ready for change and my friends were going this way and I wanted to go this way. And
Mhm.
I remember crying to my ex-boyfriend and saying, why don't they want to do what I want to do? And why don't they want to? And it was at that point that I was done with the people pleasing. I was done with, I don't want to go their way.
Mhm.
I love them and I can be there and watch them on their journey, but I don't want to do those things. I want
Right.
to work out and I want to go to bed at 9 o'clock. And,
Right.
they would sometimes make comments because we would go out and they would want to stay out late. And I would say, no, like I actually don't really want to do this. And so that is where the friction started happening, because with boundaries, that was my boundary. And I didn't even realize at the time that that's what it was. But
Mhm.
I remember feeling like, am I wrong for wanting to go to
Right.
bed early? Am I wrong? Because it's
Mhm.
like, okay, yeah, you're not fun, you're boring, you're like an old.
Oh, I know
Oh, I
that.
used
I've
to.
been there. I've
I
had that. When I
yeah.
when I switched from party girl to now spiritual teacher and like acknowledging
Yes.
my gifts and all that, everyone was like, "You're crazy. What do you mean?" And like, you're not fun anymore. And I was like, "No, this isn't the lifestyle I want anymore."
Yeah, you're just again, you're evolving. So it's time for a 2.0 of you. And so that is where the friction for me, where I felt it. But I'm Portuguese and I'm like, I have a little bit of like this fire in me.
Mhm.
So a part of me was like, it- how do I explain this? You know, when you know something so deep within you that you don't
Of
give
course.
an F what anyone
Yes.
thinks. It
Yes.
was sort of that I felt this friction, but I knew that I wanted my lifestyle so bad that I
Right.
actually didn't care. I
Right.
was like, you know what? I actually don't care. Not that I don't care about my friends. I don't care to stand alone. I would rather stand alone, doing what I love, feeling good, and exploring this than regret not doing this.
Hmm.
And so that is when I really started, I guess, evolving with boundaries and really discovering what it is that I wanted. And I'm really lucky again. I really believe that God, however long people are in your life, for example, my ex-boyfriend, people will often not have the greatest things to say about exes or some relationships, but I believe that when you sit down and you actually observe from an objective perspective what you have gained from those relationships, you can always walk away with something of value. And I remember my ex-boyfriend always, he toughened me. He said, you can't be so emotional about everything. You can't let things really rock you to the core because if you do, you're gonna get eaten alive. And he helped me a lot. He helped me a lot with affirming my boundaries, with
Hmm.
setting them, being strong in them. And it is still an everyday learning because even now, when I make changes with the way that I'm messaging people or the frequency, people don't like it. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I got to think to myself, I got to do what's best for me. I always will consider other people because, for example, and I want to say this because it is beautiful to care about yourself. It is beautiful
Mhm.
to put yourself first and make sure that you're taken care of. But if you just focus on this, and I would love if we can talk about this a little bit more, but if you just focus on you and not your relationships and not your friendships and not your family and not joy, you
Mhm.
will literally be a shell of a person.
Mhm.
So you have to focus on you while also still pouring into others because without others, like being alone during COVID was the biggest eye opener for me because I realized how much I needed other people,
Right.
and we take that for granted because
Yes.
I would not want to go back to that time being alone. I felt really, really alone. And I was single. I had moved back in with my mom. It was a hard time.
Right.
And so I think that there's value in having boundaries, but I think that from what I'm learning, at least in my journey, is I really need relationships because I really believe that that is one of the pillars of health is your relationships.
Hmm. I would agree with that too. I think it's very important for people to know that we need each other and we need to have healthy exchanges with one another
Mhm.
because there is like a positive, you just think about it. Like you said to yourself yesterday, it's like it was a busy week and then we went out for dinner last night. It was like,
Mhm.
this is really nice. Like it's just nice to catch up and not worry about work or not think about other things or just talk. And I think we need each other more regardless. Men
Yes.
do too. I'm not going to sit here and say men don't, but we all do. As a community of women in general, we do need to have healthy relationships and friendships and where there's no competition, no
Yeah.
jealousy, no
Yeah.
one's taking anything
Mhm.
from one another. Like we need to learn how to have these healthy dynamics.
I think what I'm hearing is, and what I'm also learning in my life, it's also needing to discern who those relationships are, because
100%.
not
Yes.
everyone is going to be the person that you have to pour into. Not everyone is going to be the right connection for you to prioritize in your life. And I think a lot of times it's challenging because sometimes people say that they'll do things, or they'll pretend like they've got your back, or like they're your friends, or they'll just act a certain way if you're changing, or if you're evolving, or if your life is going in a certain direction. So, and it's like so nuanced. So
Yeah.
I
It
think
is.
that is a skill that I personally just continue to cultivate as I get older, because that's key, just knowing who your community is at the end
Yeah.
of the day.
Yeah. And I think that's, you said that beautifully. Yeah. I agree with
I
that. Discernment is a very, very important thing. For me, it's like the discernment in understanding healthy relationship dynamics
Mhm.
and like knowing that there's so many great people out there and it's so important to find the right types of people for you and your community and so on. I know you have an inner child question and then we'll like end.
Yes. This wouldn't be a spirituality pod, wouldn't be a Soul Tribe podcast if we didn't ask this.
Yes.
So, KM, you mentioned a couple of times, your childhood and how you felt when you were younger. How has the inner child healing played a role in your own evolution as a woman today, and how do you continue to sort of maintain that connection with that younger version of you?
So therapy has been life-changing for me. Again, I mentioned I'm Portuguese, and my mom, for quite a long time, I said to her, I think I need to do therapy. I think I really, really need to do therapy. And my parents were born and raised in Portugal. They moved here when they were 20. They were babies. And my mom said, You're fine. You don't need
Right.
therapy.
Typical European response.
Right.
Right.
And
What do you mean therapy? I'm depressed too. Move on.
yeah, it's sort of
You're
like
so ungrateful. What do you mean you?
yeah, literally that. It's like fall, get up. There's no like, oh,
Right.
poor things. Like, no, let's keep it going.
Yes, yes.
And I will say that I find that there is value in having um the ability to shine, to be
The
resilient.
resiliency. Yeah.
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 But to answer your question, therapy was for me life-changing because what I discovered through therapy was there was so much hurt from
Mhm.
when I was a child. And one of my old best friends, he said to me, KM, in your work, you're here. In your friendships, you're here. In your life, you're here. You are literally 10 out of 10 on everything. And then with men, you're like 6 feet below ground.
Okay.
And he was not the only person that has said that to me. So I think that in order for my life, for all these other avenues to evolve even further, I had to take care of this one specific one because it was like this thing that was just weighing me down. And
Right.
when I did therapy, and I've shared this on my socials before, that the first 6 or 7 sessions, all I did was cry.
Right.
It was just, I just felt like I had kept things in, and I'm sure everyone can relate
Mm-hmm.
to this, where
Of
you
course.
just, you feel like I'll take care of it later. It's not that important, and then your days just go by, and before you know it, it's a couple of years, and you're like, oh my God, I haven't resolved that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so therapy has been life-changing. I would recommend it. I do recommend it. I talk a lot about it on my platforms. And it has helped me just make peace with myself, my past, my hurts, and also in learning that one of the things that's really beautiful about therapy is that you learn so much about other people while you're learning about yourself. And at the end of the day, we are all just trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Like no one is seriously, unless they're not well, they're not seriously trying to live their life in a way that's harming you per se, right?
Yeah.
We are all just doing what we
Coping.
need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and taking care of ourselves, right? So I learned that, sometimes people just don't know better. And that helps me with having compassion, even towards people. And I often get the question of, do you ever get mean DMs or people? And I have to say, I think I'm one of like 2 people or 3 people. I do not ever get mean DMs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's, again, my energy, and I always come from a place of compassion.
Yes.
Also, I have a boundary. So if you cross it, you're gonna get the
Yeah.
not so nice KM. Um, but I also, going back to the therapy, it's helped me just understand that so many of us don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And our upbringings are so different. And yeah, I think compassion and therapy has been
Yeah.
the biggest thing for my inner child.
That's amazing. I do think it's a self-awareness piece. This was amazing. Thank you so much for coming on today. We talked about so many great topics.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. Well, Cam, we're definitely going to come on a stronger walk. And for those who are interested, we're going to have all your information as well. And they could follow you and actually join in a stronger walk as
Yeah,
well.
we'll
That'd
see
be
you in the
great.
spring in person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be fantastic. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much again.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.